Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. The topic for today is the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount a masterpiece? We're going to try and answer that question today. This is a review of the Explorer's Guide to Wildemount. Now, this book has been out for a long time, and so why am I doing a review now? I've only finally caught up, that's why. This book is inspired by Matthew Mercer's personal campaign world, Exandria. This is from the Critical Role live stream Dungeons & Dragons game. This excellent and quite enormous reference book includes a contents page, as you would expect, but it also has a glossary. I haven't seen a glossary in a Dungeons & Dragons 5e product for a long time. And it also has an index, something that I always require in any reference book, and they've done it here. That's excellent. Listing the maps in the contents page with the page numbers makes this book very easy to cannibalize for your own homebrew games. So if you're wanting to use these in your own homebrew game, you can, even if you're not using it for Wildemount. The world lore for Wildemount might appeal to Critical Role fans, but for me it's nothing special, as I have seen nations at war before. That doesn't change the fact that Wildemount is exceptionally well detailed and well laid out. The Wildemount gazetter is enormous with amazing levels of detail and some adventuring ideas for any level of play, which is great to see in any kind of campaign book. Every race option has been reprinted for this world with the lore and its mechanics, which makes this a much better and more complete book than any other Wizards of the Coast campaign book that I've seen. There's no new races, but there are a few new sub-races. We also have the Hollow One, which is a supernatural gift or a character option that fits the campaign quite well, but seems very dark and kind of unappealing, outside the fact that it does have benefits to your mechanics of your character. I would also like to point out that this particular feature or option is really only available if a character dies, unless of course your Dungeon Master changes things up. There are 3 backgrounds that aren't that interesting as far as I'm concerned. I've kind of seen that sort of stuff before, but I would also like to point out it has a lot of variant options or variant features for every single background. But the standout feature in this section for me is definitely the character creation tables. These are awesome, and there's lots of them, and they cover many aspects of any kind of character you might create. We have an Echo Knight subclass. It's quite unique. It looks very strange when you look at it, but it's easily the strongest fighter subclass in the game now. It's a hard subclass to actually successfully use in your game, in my opinion, but it has potential inside and outside of combat, which means this subclass could be used for utility and for tactical combat. This subclass will really require a very skilled, clever and creative person or problem solver to get the most tactically and from the utility of the subclass, in my opinion. We also have a Time Wizard. I'm just going to call it the Time Wizard. It has very good low-level abilities for combat and non-combat applications. But then we hit level 10, and the Wizard class feature breaks the game, because now you can actually cast Lehman's Tiny Hut while you are in combat. Yes, you could cast the spell, hold on to it, and then release it during combat, and now you have an impregnable fortress that everybody can shoot out of. This is sort of going to break the game for most Dungeon Masters, in my opinion. Being able to affect every D20 dice roll and boosting initiative is an amazing mechanic, and I like the fact that it's there. I don't have an issue with that at all. This wizard is seriously overpowered with crazy abilities, and unfortunately, in my opinion, I would probably ban this from my table. Of course, that's your choice, but in my case, I would probably ban it just because it's too good, and I love playing wizards. And of course, all wizards are pretty broken, but this one is more broken than most. Then we have the Gravity Wizard. This is a very unique concept with some very interesting abilities at low level, but generally I would say it's underpowered and a bit complex. And you might say it's kind of average. I don't think this is something you would ban from your table. I would also say that you could play this and you might do perfectly fine, or you might just sort of get a bit frustrated with some of the abilities that you have in this subclass. But anyway, It's a gravity wizard, and we haven't seen something like this before. The spells on offer are a mixed bag of poor and situational, with the exception of Magnify Gravity. This is like, my Magnify Gravity is like now the best level 1 spell in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, just because it affects an area and it does so much damage. This is one spell I haven't decided whether I would ban from my table. I have to say that I think it's better than anything else we currently have available to us. The time and gravity spells are very complex in my opinion, a bit confusing. I really struggle to understand how they work. I needed to do some research. I also believe that the design team really needed to have more input into these, and there needed to be more playtesting taking place to actually make sure these spells were going to be worthwhile, because there's nothing worse than having a whole lot of spells that are around an aspect of the game we haven't seen, which is time and gravity, and then suddenly they're not really very good, so you don't want to use them. So that sort of sucks. This might be the only Dungeons & Dragons 5e Wizards of the Coast campaign book with 4 starting adventures. That's right, there are 4 of them. These adventures are average in quality in my opinion, but parts of them are simple enough that a beginner dungeon master could run them. But then the rest of the adventures tend to be requiring intermediate skill. So there's no adventure that goes from beginning to end that a beginner will probably find that easy to run. And therefore you could probably pull sections out and just use them in your own campaign if you wanted to, and you would probably be perfectly fine. So good as a way of home brewing when you're a beginner and you're ready to try out something new. There are a vast number of very clever and powerful magic items, from common to artifacts to plunder, for your campaign in this book. There's also the brilliant development of the vestiges of divergence. These incorporate magic item evolution, growth, and advancement when the player characters advance their personal journey in the Dungeons & Dragons campaign, rather than basing it off your character level, which I think is actually brilliant. This is new stuff. I don't think we have seen anything like this before. For me, it's the advancement of how magic items should use, rather than trading out the +1 sword for a +2 sword later on when you get higher up in level. This is a brilliant idea. The beastiary, or bestiary as they have described it, but I'm going to call it the beastiary, is generally very small in terms of the range of monsters that we have available. They are modified monsters from the monster manual with more interesting and dangerous stat blocks in my opinion. I think a lot of these monsters really do stand out. Now why do they stand out? Well, because damage immunity seems to be a reoccurring theme. Rather than damage resistance, we see damage immunity quite a lot. A lot of these monsters do not include damage resistance, so that doesn't mean that a magic item is going to circumvent damage resistance, because damage immunity doesn't have that feature as they're written in this book. Often attacks that monsters make, or even a monster ability, will inflict secondary damage types or a condition. These are all things I like as well. I think that we really needed to see more conditions being imposed on a character when they were struck by a monster's ability or attacks, and this does it. So this is standout sort of stuff. This is the sort of thing you need to do to your own monsters when you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, in my opinion. There is a pull-out poster map of Wildemount. It's excellent, but it's also single-sided, which is a big, huge shame and a waste of space. There were plenty of maps in the book that could have gone on the other side of that poster map, and they haven't done that. Why? I do not know. Maybe it was just money. The book is already very, very large. The artwork is a mix of maps, pretty pictures that include old art pieces. And I don't like it when they include old art pieces, even if they relate to the adventure book or the campaign book in this case. It doesn't matter as far as I'm concerned. A lot of the art is from the fans. It's fan art. I don't have an issue with that, but I would have liked to see more maps rather than pretty pictures. But I have to say, there are a lot of maps in this book. Matthew Mercer has not really let Wizards of the Coast take any shortcuts, except for, I would say, the poster map. Everything else is fully fleshed out. It's all there. You're not going to have to look for anything extra, because all the work has been done. So if you are a fan of Critical Role, Exandria, Wildemount, or Matthew Mercer and his world, you're going to love this book. This is not going to be something you will regret purchasing. But if you're somebody who's not really interested in Exandria or Wildemount, there's a lot of good stuff in here, but would you buy it? Probably not. Unfortunately, even though there are some very good things in here, you are not going to get the full use of the book because there's just not going to be enough content for the money you're putting out, unfortunately. That doesn't mean it isn't a very good book. Now, if you found this video helpful and informative, fantastic. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters you are welcome to go and check out. I also have a Patreon page underneath all of my videos. If you want to support the channel, I have affiliate links down in the description. I have a merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos as well. Or if you want to support the channel, just keep watching my videos. That's fine too. Make sure to do all the YouTube things like share, like, subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified when I go live. And I go live quite a lot every week actually. And also when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.